Okay, so you want some? So here's some color. I mean, his eyes have been closed most of the morning. Again, I can't say what's happening behind those lids.
Well, it's not going to work. And with that, I yield back.
You know, every so often, Mr. Garcia, maybe you could just lift up that picture of our President Trump sleeping. As you say, I think he's praying. But if he is sleeping, you know, he certainly looks pretty while he sleeps.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Let's talk about Donald Trump. I agree with the Republican from New Jersey who said if a person cannot stand trial, he should not be president of the United States. Donald Trump has fallen asleep multiple times at his own criminal trial. I am a former prosecutor. I can tell you that is not normal. I think there may be some physical and mental health issues that should be investigated. I'm going to tell you what people in the courtroom are writing about Donald Trump falling asleep. Here's a reporter who has been observing this. One reporter observed, quote, that Donald Trump has nodded off a few times, his mouth going slack and his head drooping onto his chest, end quote. Another reporter said, quote, that Donald Trump slowly dropped his head. His eyes closed, it jerked back upward, he adjusts himself, then his head droops again, he straightens up, leaning back, his head droops for a third time, he shakes his shoulders, eyes closed still, his head drops, end quote. If a person is so weak and feeble, if Donald Trump is so weak and feeble, he cannot stay awake at his own criminal trial, he can't be president of the United States.
Congressman Lieu makes a great point. If it's not something really serious going on with Donald Trump, why is he falling asleep in the middle of the most important trial of his life? This is a trial that could take away his liberty, could actually put him in jail, and can certainly make him a felon for life. In all my years of covering live trials, I have never seen a criminal defendant fall asleep in their courtroom. And that includes Robert Durst, who, if you remember at the time of his California criminal trial, was so sick he had to be wheelchaired in every day. He managed to stay awake. So here's Donald Trump falling asleep, even during the testimony of Michael Cohen, who you would think would be one of the most riveting testimonies to him. That is his adversary, his former fixer, yet he repeatedly fell asleep. This is after his really unhinged rant at the New Jersey rally where he was talking about Hannibal Lecter like as if that was a real person, not a fictional movie character, and as if he were dead even though the actor is alive.
Silence of the Lambs. Has anyone ever seen The Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter is a wonderful man. He oftentimes would have a friend for dinner. Remember the last scene? Excuse me, I'm about to have a friend for dinner as this poor doctor walked by. I'm about to have a friend for dinner, but Hannibal Lecter, congratulations, the late, great Hannibal Lecter.
So what about him falling asleep in court? Will that actually matter in terms of getting a conviction or not? The answer is probably, because the jury, they pay attention to everything in that courtroom. That is their entire job, is to pay attention to the proceedings. They have nothing else going on. They don't have phones to distract them. They're not talking to their neighbors. They are just watching. They are watching everything. They are watching the person on the witness stand, and they are certainly watching the criminal defendant. So when he is falling asleep, it is sending a really bad message. It's sending a message, first of all, that he just doesn't respect the proceedings whatsoever. And when you are in a criminal trial, well, the whole point is, are you respecting the laws or did you break the law for your own personal gain? Disrespecting the courtroom doesn't make you look like somebody who actually respects the law. So it kind of goes into that idea of, hey, he does what he wants when he wants. He's even going to fall asleep in the middle of his own criminal trial. And not only that, but it kind of just breeds some sort of like disrespect to the jury because they can't fall asleep. You have just asked people to give up a lot of time from their jobs, from their family. I mean, we are talking weeks of sacrifice here, and they are doing it for you. For you, the criminal defendant, because you're the one who asked to have a jury trial. You didn't have to have a jury trial. You could have had a judge trial. You have a constitutional right to a jury trial, but you asked those jurors to come and sit and pay attention and judge fairly your case. but you can't manage to stay awake for your case, even though you're asking them to stay awake. Certainly disrespectful to the jurors themselves. Never mind sending this bad message about whether or not you're respecting the laws and the process.
I know a lot of people refer to the former president as president, but we have one president at a time, and that is Joe Biden. And seemingly, this type of attitude and position has come straight from the top. This idea of lacking all decorum, decency has left the building when the stench of Donald Trump showed up. And so we've seen constantly from him how he mocks people. We've seen in this committee how different members want to mock other members. And that's all this is about. But what is so frustrating to me and what should be frustrating to the American people, and the reason that really all y'all should lose y'all's jobs, but why we are going to take the majority is simple. It's because we showed up ready to work earlier today, like we always do. And now it is currently 10 p.m. and we are still here because we are committed to doing the right thing. And my question is really simple. It's a matter of, if this was such a big deal, if it was a matter of an emergency, if this was so important as it relates to whether or not the president of the United States has done something so wrong, then why is it that we couldn't have our hearing at 11 o'clock this morning instead of members being in a criminal courthouse with a twice impeached, over 88 count indicted sexual abuser, instead of being here to do the work of the American people? If this was serious, this is the reason that people don't believe that we are doing serious
Mr. Chairman,
work
point of order.
here.
I'd ask to state your point.
The jurors are also noticing the parade of high-profile politicians coming into the courtroom and the lack of the family members. Only his one son has showed up, despite the fact that really the key person to show up in a case like this would have been his wife. So why bring politicians when your whole argument is, if I did this, I did it because I was a family guy and not because I wanted to win the election? When you bring a bunch of politicians, it certainly looks like you care more about politics than your family. And not only that, but these politicians are violating the gag order on his behalf. They are having talking points. Evidently, Trump was even making annotations on the talking points. What will happen with respect to that? I mean, the gag order is really clear. The judge says that Trump can't make or cause the making of a violation of the gag order. He can't disparage witnesses. Certainly, the people that he's asking to come seem to be violating the gag order for him. So far, the prosecution hasn't asked the judge to rule on a violation of a gag order, even though I think they actually would have a good argument. This is actually typical even in like defamation law. You can be liable for defamation if you made the statement or if you caused somebody else to make the statement. So it's very sound legal backing and really clear in this gag order that he can't cause somebody else to make it. So if he's asking somebody else to do it and even editing their comments, it seems like a clear violation of the gag order. And at this point, the judge has warned him any violation would be jail time. I think the prosecution is seeing that the case is nearing a close, and perhaps that's why they're not asking him to, for the judge to look at it.
It's painfully obvious that we're now 6 months out from an election day. And that's the reason. That is the reason why they brought these charges here and across the country. The star witness here is Michael Cohen. I just listened to a few moments of his testimony this morning, and it is consistent with what he's already done. This is a man who is clearly on a mission for personal revenge and who is widely known as a witness who has trouble with the truth. The crime that they are accusing President Trump of is falsification of business records. But I think everybody knows he is not the bookkeeper for his company. President Trump is innocent of these charges.
Like I said before, I'll say it again. Trump shouldn't be given any more leeway or any less leeway than any criminal defendant. And if I was asking somebody else to disparage witnesses in the case against me, in a criminal case against me, you bet that prosecutor would be asking that judge for a violation of the gag order. So let's not let Trump get away with something that everybody else wouldn't.
I think the most important thing that people should understand about this election is how far from normal it is. We have never had a former presidential candidate who was impeached and then indicted for trying to overturn an election. Never. In all of our history. We've never had a former president, a presidential candidate, who lies about the election that he lost. We've never had a former president or presidential candidate who refuses to pledge to accept the results of the next election if he lost.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.